All right, up to the fronts now. Just getting ready to jack this front up here. I just see it starting to lift this wheel a little bit here. So now is when I'm going to take this cap off here. Like I said, there's a couple of different pry slots on it. Okay, our lug wrench here. Okay, go back around here, get this wheel off the ground a little bit here. Just want a little air under there, not too much. Alright, gonna check and make sure the vehicle feels pretty stable here. We're gonna go get our get my jack stand here, and I think I'm going to put this under the side right here. That's where I'm going to put this guy. That's where that one's going to go there. Alright, let's get the rest of these nuts off here. Started out warmer and it got a little bit chilly. That's why I'm wearing a jacket now. That's Oregon weather for you. You need about 3 different layers. All right, couple more here. All right, we'll set our lug nuts aside. All right, here we go. Alright. If you've got more than one wheel off too, a couple of stacked up tires on their sides are good to put under a vehicle too, because that's, more than enough to support the weight there. Matter of fact, if you really need some blocks, some jack, go to a junkyard or something and get some old spare tires. They're still on some rims and pretty good to put underneath there. All right. Okay, let's see, where are we here? All right, we're going to take these calipers off here, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to crack this bleeder screw here and then get the appropriate wrench. These here take a, is it an Allen or a Torx there? Looks like a Torx bit. So I'm going to go break out the Torx bit and get what I need to take that off of there, and I'll get back to it. Alright, on this particular vehicle, 99 Expedition, it's a T45 to get these loose. When I said earlier about soaking this stuff with WD-40 or PB Blaster, these are definitely bolts that you need to do that with. Because even though these things aren't overly rusty, they squeaked it pretty good coming off of there. I mean, if it would have taken too much more pressure, it would have maybe stripped. And you don't want to strip the heads on these. I really don't know why they put these kind of heads on here. Bolt heads or even socket headed Allen head. But these things are kind of a nightmare. I'll show you when I get them off of here. Yeah, let's put something like that. I mean, it's not rusty or anything. I mean, if it was, that's just, yeah, you definitely, whatever. Yeah, definitely put some stuff, definitely soak these. Because you don't want to screw the heads up on these things. So this is my personal vehicle, and I was driving it a lot. I'm going to keep it forever or whatever. I'd go get me some bolts with some real heads on there. I mean, there's a time and a place for this stuff. I don't know. When cars are really old, like, you know, from the last century, I don't complain too much. But when they, you know, anything that's got, you know, more modernish that has some of the kind of design flaws is just whatever. Okay. Yeah, soak your bolts. Let's see, let me get the magic screwdriver here. It's not a bad idea to have a pair of knee pads either, or something to kind of put your knees and stuff on. I do, I just have a tendency not to use them, and alright, this thing wants to be difficult here. Let's see here. All right. Let's see, I believe on these you gotta chisel off this. Let me see here. I'll be back. I gotta figure out the proper procedure for getting that. Yeah, okay, so sometimes stupid things happen and it causes a major problem. I took those two bolts out, which is all you should have needed to take out to get the caliper off of there. But because, you know, the brake pressure built up in the brake lines from squeezing those other pistons back in, and like I said, I cracked the bleeder screw, but it just decided to go this way. And then, you know, because of the ridge on here, there was just, it really locked these on here. I had to open up this valve for the hose on there and stick my screwdriver back in here. Kind of show you can kind of get to the piston right here. Kind of had to stick my screwdriver in there and just kind of push on it like that until enough oil came out of there that this whole thing started to come off of here like that. So, geez. So, anyways, I'm going to get a drip pan under that real quick, and I'll be back. Okay. See, I really did go get a drip pan. Alright. So I'm going to take the rest of this brake line off here and then just take the caliper off. That's the only thing that's holding it on here. Like I said, the brakes are going to be needed to be severely bled after this, so that's okay. The fluid should be reasonably clean in here because The whole reason I'm doing this is a few weeks back I took this thing for a drive and came back, and this front wheel was smelling pretty funny. And I think a few weeks back we'd had a whole bunch of rain and snow and mud, and I think just something got stuck in here, and it just caused it to kind of overheat a little bit. So then I got to looking and realized it was about due for the brake. So alright, that's just going to leak its little heart out there. So I think we're about ready to yank this thing off here. Okay, there's the caliper all by itself, and then the pads, they've got their own little funky way of, you can see that one just, it really wanted to get off the ship. That's nice. That's what you don't, thank God that's an old one. That's what you don't want that on your new one. I mean, you can clean it off, but that's really not what you want. And there again, even though, you're making a little bit of a mess here, you get your drip pan underneath there and you catch all of this, most of it anyways, and, you do okay. So next we got to take this thing off here. You can take this whole thing off in one piece. It really doesn't matter how you do it. I like to take these, off here because you're breaking those smaller bolts loose while it's, still bolted to here, so that's, good. So I'm going to get myself together again and clean my hands off, get another pair of gloves on, and get this back bracket off of here. I only really need to get this off because you have to take this off to pull the rotor off otherwise. So and then I'm going to spend some time having a look at this caliper and making sure it's okay, and we'll go from there. Greasy Hands Garage. That's a good name for a garage. If you guys, somebody's going to start a garage and you ain't got one going and you need a name, there you go. Okay. Back, and I went and grabbed a 18 millimeter wrench here. We're going to take this bracket off here. Pretty good. Okay, we need to switch to the bigger one. Not a problem. Yeah, that's why you should always have a cheater bar or something big laying around. Bitch is on there. Ah, shit. Speaking of letting my bolt soak, oh man, I can probably get at it better from a better angle. Oh man. Yeah, that one's on there. Oh geez. That figures. Alright, well. I'm going to spray some, got to take my own advice, put some penetrating oil on there, and just kind of let this stuff gel overnight, because I'm tired and I need to let that thing soak a little, and I still need to figure out whether I'm going to try and go pick up or order some of those parking brake shoes for the rear. So with that, I shall return. Okay, well, I did manage to get these two loose. I soaked some WD-40 on there and got in that wheel well a little bit more with this thing, and That was probably a good, 3/4 of a way on your way there to a hernia. They were definitely, that bottom one, man, that sucker was really on there. So I got those loose, so I'm going to finish loosening them up too. Taking them off of here. See, that one's still, it's not, gosh, see, and that's just life. That's life here. That's, oh. That's just life, you know? Okay. Oh, that one up there's got a ways to go. Yes, we got it. It's just being stubborn. This bracket's heavy. You need to be lifting up on this. Okay, all right. There, set it down there. You get new clips, and I'll show how those go on there. There's several different clips in this little arrangement here. So now we're gonna get this thing off of here. That's a little stuck on there. It's absolutely amazing how metal can rust, like deteriorate. It's turning to something that's less than metal. But it does it in a way where it'll just make something really hard or almost impossible to get it off. It's always kind of fascinated me. You always would think, oh, it's rusted. Yeah, it's going to fall off because there's less metal there. But no. All right, set this thing over here. Okay, now let's see what we got here. Okay, well, everything looks like it should. Alright, let's see. I got to get the new rotor, clean that off, and then I'll be back. Okay, again, most of this is pretty much the same as the back. A little bit different, but they don't give you a ton of this stuff, or they didn't anyways when I bought this, so kind of gotta, I already kind of hosed it off. I'm just gonna put a little bit more on here. And like I said, when you get to where most of the black stops coming off, then you're all right. Okay. These studs look pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to put the rotor back on and I'm going to clean up that bracket just a tiny little bit and check on a couple other little things here. And well, let's get this thing up here. Okay, where are you? There you go. All right. Alright, like I said, I'm going to clean up these bolts to that bracket there and that bracket a little bit and then get ready to put that back on. Okay, I'm back. Got this bracket cleaned up. Got those bolts cleaned up there, so I'm going to put this bracket and these bolts back on, and then we'll go over, these are two of the old clips here. They give you new clips. We'll go over all these clips and where they go and all that stuff. Let's get this back on here first. I just gave these bolts the wire brush and wiped them off real good. That should be just fine. They don't recommend you put anything on them, really. You don't want to put I don't think you want to put thread lock or anything on them. I don't think you need to. Just maybe a very light oil on the threads, you know, penetrating oil, just to kind of wipe it off. Good to go. All right. Put the gloves on here. Okay. A rag here. Wipe this socket off and this wrench here. Had a not very nice bath today. Okay. Alrighty. I can get a better purchase tightening it than I could loosening it, just because of the way that it is. Maybe on the other side I'll have better luck loosening. That's about right. Okay, alright. Okay, so rotor's on, that's on. So the next thing is the caliper and the pads, and then after I get that on, got to change the brake hose. Then we got to do those clips, and then the calipers, and then the pads. So the pads go on here first. Like a lot of brakes, the pads go into the caliper, and then the caliper goes over. But the pads kind of go in here, and then the caliper kind of goes over it like that. So it's getting a little dark, and I need a break, and I need to kind of regroup and reorganize and figure out all this, what I'm going to do next here. So with that, I'll return. Okay, we're back. Next day. Got a little more light here. I really wanted to try and zoom in and show you these clips. This is the old one that was on there. There's one on the top. We already went through. We already put this on there, so there's one of these clips that goes on the top and one of them on the bottom, and they're both different. You're just going to have to kind of pay attention when you take them off of there, which one's which. I mean, I could show you here, but I can tell you that on either clip, the part that's got this little trough here, that's the part that goes up onto the caliper like that. You can kind of see that area there. So wherever the trough is, that goes up on there like that. And these clips are really, these things are sharp, so you really should definitely try and wear gloves while you're messing with these, because between the old ones and the new ones, you're almost guaranteed to get a cut on your hand. So anyways, so yeah, I just kind of wanted to show that. You got the little trough there that fits into, and you just kind of have to pay attention when you're taking them off. And like I said, that's the other reason to do one side at a time. That way, if you can't figure out how these goes, you can go over there and take off the other wheel and take a look at it and figure it out. So with that, I'm going to back the camera up a little bit, and next we're going to put the shoes in, or the pads on. Okay, now I've tried to put the camera at an angle where maybe you can kind of see how I have to put these shoes in here. Make sure your clips are sitting on there flat. And these things here, you don't just put them in here and then push down, because that won't work. If you go to do that, you'll look and it'll look like it's too long, and it's a bit of an optical illusion here as to how to put that in there. So what you do is You get it kind of in there like that, and then you just push up on the top there. Hold on, I gotta pull this out a little bit. It's a little fidgety. Yeah, let me try doing it the other way. Okay, see, then that happens. So you may have to, again, that's why I show some of this. I could just cut away and show it on there, but the reality of it is, this is the fidgety kind of stuff that goes on. Okay, what did I do? I put it in the top first last time, right? So I want to try and stick it in the bottom one. Fidget, fidget, fidget. For some reason, this other one went on easier, so I'm just going to do this one first, if I can, because I don't know. My brain is not awake yet, I don't think. Son of a biscuit. Okay, I'm thinking you probably got to take a screwdriver. There. That was a lot bigger of a pain in the ass than it needed to be. So we're going to see if we can do it a little bit better on this side here. Okay, I obviously don't know WTF what I'm doing here, so I'm just going to pause it and figure out how to do it, because what the hell. Okay, so the first thing I was doing wrong was this outside one here has a squeaker there for, you know, when the pad starts getting down too far. Kind of like this one here. And I was trying to put the other one on. But still, I had to kind of I got them both on there, but it should be a little bit easier to just snap them in there than what I had to do for some strange reason. So I'm going to go do a little more research and see if I can find if there's a special little trick, an easier way to putting those on there. Because this first one's not too bad to go on there. But then, you know, these things are kind of springy, and then the pressure kind of starts pushing down on here, and it would seem like there's got to be some kind of weird little trick to putting those things on there a little better. But that being the case, I'm going to back up the camera here a little bit, and we're just going to go ahead and put the, I'll do it again on the other side. We'll just go ahead and put the, move the camera a little bit here. Alright. Excusez-moi. Alright, so with that, we basically just have to put the caliper back on, put the bolts in, and then change the brake line hose. So, caliper. Yeah, let me make sure these pistons are pushed in just a little bit more here. Fortunately, brake fluid just kind of washes away, so I'm not suggesting you make a mess with it. I'm just saying at least it doesn't stain and it's a little more. Oh, let me get an old brake pad and put it in there just to be nice to it. Where are the old brake pads? I'm just going to have to do it this way. I don't have the time to hunt everything down that I've lost in the last 24 hours. So, that's okay. These pistons are pretty, they're dual pistons, they're pretty stout. Alright. Just clean up the surface. I did wire brush this thing off and clean it off a little bit so it actually looks like a brake caliper now. Now remember, that's the other thing too. These bushing things here will be sometimes pushed in, so you got to make sure these are pushed all the way out. While I'm doing this, let me take a little bit of this grease here too. You're supposed to do this. And just put some of it on some of these surfaces here. You don't want to put a bunch of it on there. Just anything that's touching something else a little bit, just to kind of help. You can put a little bit of in these pinholes too if it needs it. It kind of depends on the shape your existing calipers in, but you just put a kind of a light coat on all this stuff here. Again, if you get too much on, just wipe it off. Okay, I need to put it anywhere else. I think we're pretty good to go. Alright. Like I said, my gloves are on me, off of me more than they're on me. Alright, I should just be able to stick this thing on here. Okay, this thing needs to go. I'll tell it where it can go, alright. I need to get on the other side of it. This isn't working for me. Did I mention brakes are not my favorite thing to do? It's just, you know. This was kind of an unexpected project with this thing anyway, so. Yeah, this stuff will try your patience, that's for sure. God. You know, there's some things about this system that are really good, and then there's some other things that it's just like... What a pain in the balls. I can't say that, can I? Balls, bouncing balls, basketballs. Pain in the basketballs. Shit. Christ. They've always had weird ways of getting these calipers on and off. The old ones had this metal pin thing that you had to pound kind of out, which if you knew what you were doing, that wasn't so bad, I guess. My favorites are probably just, you know, the ones that just have a bolt at the top and the bottom and they just come off. This shit, you gotta, stuff, you've got to put it, you know. Like I said, it's one of those things, if you did it all day long, you could do it in 10 seconds. But I think we're going somewhere. I don't know where. Jeez Louise. This is one of those vehicles that fights me on everything I do to it. It's really not... Okay, so I had to pry up on it like this. Again, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. Okay, now I gotta find the other bolt that I had laying here, and this is the other reality here. You get to screwing around, and then you'll start losing stuff. Alright, here we go. It's another reason to only have one wheel apart at a time, not, you know... Alright, well, I got it. Oh. I really had to fiddle with these things. I just kind of, after I got this top one in, then I had to pound this back in, and it just, what happens is it's kind of got to, this thing's got to go in with these springy clips too, and it's just, it really shouldn't be that difficult. I'm just having a time with it for whatever reason. So I'm going to get my butt back over here. Fortunately, I can just fast forward all of that stuff, and I'll fast forward most of it because I was swearing through most of it the whole time, so. It's a little more frustrating when I'm filming it because, you know, do I keep the camera going? Do I shut it off? Sometimes you just have to stop and walk away from it. And this is, again, this is a reason why sometimes taking your car to a mechanic causes problems, because you know, they got to do it in a certain amount of time. They can't meander around and be like, okay, I think I'm going to do this, and okay, maybe. No, they've got to go in there, do it, take it, you know, so they don't have the time. And sometimes, you know, sometimes that's why it's important. You know, if you got a really good mechanic, they catch all the little stuff, or they've got a way of putting stuff back together and doing stuff that, you know, things tend to work out better, as opposed to people that just maybe are part swappers and they, you know, they don't really see something that's not right somewhere else. And so, you know, there are some advantages to doing it yourself. You just got to make sure you have to have the patience for it, or make yourself patient for it, and do it in a way that, you know, you're not under a time crunch. Like I said, you know, usually when I work on people's vehicles, they know that, you know, I'm not a parts house, so if I'm helping someone with something, they know it may take, you know, time to order parts or whatever. So, okay. Yeah, I'm guessing you don't torque a T45 very much, so good there. All right, so we're good here. Got the rotor on there. So what we got to do now is the brake line. Here's the one end of it here. The other end's up here, and then part of it's bolted in, and it's got these two little clips that hold this other hose here. Let me pause the camera and see here. One glove on, one glove off. Next time it'll be the opposite. So let me go get the brake lines, and we'll get back to it. Okay. Now, this is another one of those situations where you really need to pay attention, or you're going to be doing it twice. If you got a left hand and a right hand here, and it's certainly not going to tell you on the package which one is which. So, out of the way. No brake pads for the other side. All right. The brake line, let's get the old one off first. So the one end's already undone, and then up here, what are we going to need here? Okay. We got a steel brake line going into this brass fitting, and this brass fitting is bolted to the frame. So we're going to need a socket for the bolt on the frame, and then probably a flare nut wrench for this brake line fitting. You don't have to have a flare nut wrench, but I'll get to that and brake line fittings and doing that in a second. I shall return. Okay. Again, I'm doing all this by myself, so I don't know whether I'm coming or going sometimes with this thing. So, all right, flare nut wrench and the brake line fitting here. If you do not know, these are flare nut wrenches, or a flare nut wrench set. And even an inexpensive one or an auto parts store one is usually better than not one at all. For those that don't know, that's like your regular open-ended wrench, and this is a flare nut wrench. And you'll notice, and it's got this extra little corner up here, and it's cut away right here, and that's because this is specifically made to go over steel lines that have, you know, a hex nut on them. And that's because, number one, brake lines are usually in not a very good spot, you know, they're tight, and number two, they're usually on there really tight. So you know, if you use a regular wrench, and you can use a crescent wrench, you can use you can use, you know, regular, but you really got to be careful, because if you round it off, then you're kind of hosed. So, especially if it's really hard to get to. Of course, you can replace the brake line end if you goof it up. That's doable too. Anyways, so this particular one's pretty easy to get to up here. This one took a, what do we got here? This is a 7/16 it looks like it is for this fitting here, and the socket here that holds this thing onto the frame is a 10 millimeter. And so of course you want to undo the flare nut fitting first. You don't necessarily have to take it all the way off if it starts leaking a lot of oil. You can just crack it, but let's see, get it on there. That's the other thing too. Sometimes these things can be at funny angles, and even though you can, there we go. Okay, that was pretty painless. But you know, you got this A-arm in here to kind of go get up in there. And let me check my camera angle to see. I'm probably not even shining up in there. You can see good enough. Okay. Oh, that's such a great cameraman, you know. Okay, where are we? All right, I got this thing loose in here. A couple more turns on that. It's definitely in there. I mean, it's turning smoothly, but these things, the way they go in there, you get grease and gunk, and after a while it just kind of seals the threads in there. It's about there, I think. This is where sometimes an open-ended wrench might speed the process up if you don't have a lot of room to get this thing in there. Again, this is just kind of fidget work here because you can only get it in. You got this in the way, so you can only get this wrench in here a couple different ways. So you've about a quarter turn at a time. Okay, now we got it nice and finger tight. Now we'll break this other one loose here with the 10 millimeter. Getting some wind now. Okay. All right, now we got the old hose here. There's not too much leaking out of here. Pretty much most of it leaked out of here. And there goes the tire. Okay. Pretty much most of it leaked out of here. And then that's the other thing too, make sure these things got copper O-rings on them. So make sure it's either on or off. You know, make sure you got it or know where it's at, because it'll either be stuck on here maybe or stuck on the caliper, and you don't want to end up putting two of them and stacking them together. That's not good. You don't want to do that with an oil filter on a car either. Oh, that's a nasty mistake when that happens. Let's see. Okay, so here's our brake line here. There's a couple of little clips on here to help hold this vacuum line here. So let's see. Which one of these looks like it's most like that one here? That's pretty much the name of that game. Okay, well this one's got the two little clips on it here, so I'm gonna bet that it's this one here. Let's see here. Okay, they both have clips on them, and this one isn't. That one doesn't line up. I just noticed in the bag this one's got clips too. So once again, here, let's take this one. And again, pay attention to where your copper O-rings are. This has got some brand new ones that are in the bag here. Okay. baggie with our okay. Did I mention you should have knee pads when you're doing this kind of stuff, or lay something down? Alright, this one looks like it's more of the ticket here. Alright, there we go. So these two I would say are similar. Similar enough to work, I think, so. Alright, well, you need to bolt this one up to the frame here. Snake this through over here. You don't got any copper washers or any weird stuff going on with this one. It's just that compression fitting on there, so just make sure you thread them in there. Even more importantly than not messing up the head is making sure you don't cross thread them in there. You definitely don't want to do that. Matter of fact, like I said, I'm going to leave this loose until I've got this thing kind of threaded in here by hand, so I know it's okay. Yeah, you want to be able to thread it in a few turns by your fingertips, so you know that you're not cross-threading it in there, because you do not want to do that. I'm just going to put a few extra turns on it with this wrench here and make sure that it's... Yeah, we're good. That's turning nice and free. So I'm just going to do the majority of the tightening on this since I'm in here, and since I can actually move this line around a little bit, since this bolt holding it to the frame's loose. And I'll put the final turn on it once I get this upper bolt tightened. Nope, no air tool for this, I don't think. This is just pretty much you're just doing it how you're doing it there. All right. Get this thing tightened. As far as, this stuff kind of moves around a little bit. You can move it around a little bit. Just, you can usually kind of see the old footprint of where it was riding. Just kind of bolt it up like that. All right. Now we're going to put another turn. If you don't have knee pads, then at least alternate your knees. I do have some knee pads, by the way. I just was wearing my gloves, and but at least I'm trying. At least I'm wearing my gloves sometimes. Okay, that's probably about all she needs there. Yeah. Alright, and now we got these two clips we got to slide up here. And this line here's got two little areas here that clip into the little rubber areas that hook onto these clips. So slide these clips up to where those rubber sections are. Feel free to spit on that. Alright. Okay. Good to go. Alright, so now all we got to do is take off our... I put the... excuse me here. I put the banjo fitting in the caliper here so I wouldn't lose it. And the other end of the copper O-ring is still on the old line there, and then this copper O-ring here. Keep your copper O-rings though. I mean, you could use new ones, but you should keep the old ones, because there's going to come a time when you're going to need one. And they're generally reusable because they're copper. There's a way to do what they call annealing and heating them up, and they're supposed to kind of go back to their original shape too, but I'm not going to do that right now. Alright, one copper on there, and then the other one, of course, goes on the other side, right, because you're sandwiching it in there. So you can just put the bolt through, put the other copper O-ring on the other side, like that, and then just hold this thing. And that one fell out and went into the nasty old oil. Let's wipe that off. And if you think this stuff doesn't happen in the professional shop, oh boy, do you have another thing coming. They might not show you on the video, but oh, I promise you. There are some shops that are more professional than others, I will say. But, you know, we're all human beings, and most businesses honestly do not live up to the beautiful professional sign or business cards or what have you. Alright. We need a, get our 14 millimeter, I believe it is, for that banjo fitting there, which is what they call that when it's got a through hole like that. And I usually just snug it down until, you know, there's torques for all this stuff if you've been doing it for a while. I don't have super large hands, so I have a pretty good built-in torque meter. You know, I can get something to where it's, the threads are tight, you know, and it's good and tight, and then just maybe a quarter of a turn, you know, and when you got copper on each side, and that's usually pretty good. You know, if it leaks, you can tighten it up a little bit, but it's usually not too difficult to do. So, all right, we're good here. I got room to get to these bleeder screws and everything with the wheels on. I've bled these brakes on this thing before and everything back in the day. So, like I said, we're ready to put the wheel back on and move around to the other side. So, okay, now again, here's a detach the saucer section from the ship here. Again, this is pretty typical of what you're going to have laying around, what it's going to look like when you're doing, you know, your brakes. You're going to have a little bit of mess. That's okay, like I said. Try and keep it to one wheel at a time, and when you get too PO'd, walk away, you know, and there's lots of videos, lots of information out there. So alright, I'm going to, what am I doing? Okay, now I just was going to show you the tool. Where am I going? It's not quitting time yet. That's for sure. Alright. You want to have your tires, I mean, this one just kind of rolled over and fell, but you want to be careful how you have these tires too, because if one of these things gets away from you and starts rolling down a hill or something, you're not catching it. Sorry. You'd be lucky to knock it over, but you're not catching it. You're not going to stop it. So, alright, we're back on our butts again. You don't want a flare nut wrench where the sun don't shine, that's for sure. Alright. I must say the only thing I really don't like about doing this is I generally love to listen to the radio, which I can have the CB on, so that's okay. But I usually love to listen to the radio, and you kind of can't really do that while you're doing these videos. So, other than that, which is funny because if someone was playing a radio carrier on the CB, they couldn't do anything because that's like some, you know, course, you're not supposed to do that. According to FCC rules, you're not supposed to do that. Okay. I already wiped off and kind of checked these threads out on these wheel studs earlier, so we were good to go there. Again, this is really a nice time to have your gloves on. You know, of course I don't. Maybe I could put them on while I'm using the old lug wrench here. So again, this wheel is up in the air. And I'm going to just be real redneck here for a second. Like for a second. Just stuff my foot between here and there and get these tightened down initially, and then when I set her down, I'll hit them all again. Again, it's a good idea to go in a cross pattern. You can sometimes switch up your cross. You know, like if you want to go from this one up here to this one. Maybe you can go just whatever, just so they're even. Just don't put the wheel on and tighten one down all at one time. Just do it evenly enough so make sure the wheel, look around here, make sure, you know, everything's on there right. Spin it around. Make sure it's not doing any funny wobbly stuff. So, okay, we're good enough there. Let me get the jack stand out from underneath here. Also, a good idea to get the oil tub out from underneath there. Not like I'm going anywhere anytime soon in it, but I guarantee you more than one person has run over their oil tub, their oil bucket, drain pan. That's what I'm trying to say. Whew. First thing that goes to mind. All right, let's drop this sucker. Okay. And if you're doing this to someone else's vehicle, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I'm pretty sure I tightened it, check. Because it's just, you know. I have got I can't tell you how many vehicles I bought over the years that had missing lug nuts, loose lug nuts, or the wrong ones on, and then the wheel came on. I mean, which, by the way, if you're looking at a car, used car, I don't care what it is, it's always, if it's got aftermarket tires or rims or anything on it, it's always a good idea to look at the lug nuts on it, because you don't know, especially some kid, if it's older, some kids have owned it, you know, or when I say kids, I'm just saying, when you're younger, you tend to do irresponsible things like just, oh, well, this nut doesn't fit quite right, but I'm going to put it on there anyways, you know, because you're just going to cruise down the street, you know, to your girlfriend's house, and you're not really thinking that, you know, somebody's going to buy this thing and be doing 80 with it on the freeway, and then all of a sudden the wheel's going to start wobbling, and the studs are going to shear off, and, you know, chaos and mayhem are going to be, you know, it's going to be like a scene from Final Destination at that point. So, double check your lug nuts. Really double check all of your nuts. Make sure they're all right, make sure they're all at proper thread pitch, make sure they're torqued properly. Alright, what are we doing now? Oh, center cap. Let's not forget the wonderful center cap we want to put back on here. Again, you got two pry spots here. It doesn't really matter where they go. Just try and get your lug nuts centered in here, and like I said, you know, sometimes when it pop, yeah, and see how easy it comes off of it. It was on there, pretty good. Yeah, that's why I don't like these things. And you can't pound on them really hard either because they're plastic, and I mean, it's on there. But, you know, if you really went Baja on this thing, you're going to come back and probably have one of them left on there. Like I said, if it were mine, or I had one that had these on there, I would just take these off and paint the wheels, and then paint the wheels black, get some lug nuts and paint the lug nuts body color, and call it a day, you know. But alright, done here. Need to move around to the other side.